Are you a business owner looking to secure your financial future and create a lasting legacy? I'm Leah Garcia, a financial strategist and insurance professional, and I specialize in guiding businesses with up to 50 employees on how to effectively protect and transfer their wealth. We break down silos with my unique approach, the Wall of Wealth. Imagine a seamless collaboration among your CPA, tax attorney, estate planner, and insurance expert, each playing their part in perfect harmony, ensuring your financial strategy is not just effective, but a true masterpiece. My passion stems from my own journey, from growing up on food stamps to dreaming of building community centers that empower others. Together, we'll craft a roadmap that not only safeguards your assets, but also nurtures generational wealth for your loved ones. Let's transform your vision into reality. After all, you can't measure the heart of a champion just by looking at them. Join me, and let's make your financial future shine.
And we are live. Welcome to this edition of Wealthy Wednesday. Today is going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited about my guest speaker. Oh my goodness. So I talk about financial wellness, right? The clients I work with want to create their family dynasty. They want to build that legacy and create that family dynasty. Well, I believe true wealth is having success in the 7 F's. I used to call it the 5 F's. That's so 2024. In 2025, we're talking about the 7 F's. I believe having success in your faith, your family, your finances, your fitness, your fun, and then I say philanthropic, because I believe that givers gain. We're gifted these wealth in order to do good. Maybe it's give back to your community, give back to your church. Maybe it's start your own family nonprofit or foundation. And then I'm a foodie. I believe food is the 7th F because, to have good health, we have to have good nutrition. And good nutrition, I don't know if you noticed, it's costly these days. I want to eat the food that I want to have, not the food that I can afford. So I believe having success is having wealth in all of those areas. And this is what I mean by that. And Paula and I were talking off stage is that if we accumulate riches, dollars, we amass this bank account and have this fortune. However, we don't have good relationships with our family. That's not good. That's not true wealth. Imagine that. You finally get to where it is you say you wanted to go, but along the ways you had to step on some toes. You had to forget about your kids. You never had any relationships with your grandchildren. And then suddenly arrive and you're there and you're all by yourself. That to me is not true wealth. I've seen that, and I don't believe that that's true wealth. I believe having true wealth, amassing this fortune also means that we have wealth in all those areas. We got to take care of our family relationships. We have to take care of our community. We have to feed ourselves good food. We have to have some fun, right? Fun is funner when you have a few dollars in your pocket. I love all the free stuff. Free is one of my favorite F words. So I know how to have a lot of fun with no money. But when you can have a few dollars to do a few things, it definitely adds to it, right? It doesn't take away from it. So a few people have joined us already, which is awesome. Well, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest speaker. And, this actually came from a coffee chat. If you are not doing coffee chats on LinkedIn, I implore you to implement that as part of your strategy. You never know what golden nuggets that you are going to connect with just by having a conversation with somebody. So she describes herself. Paula is an expert in family dynamics, relationships building, helping families and advisors navigate the complexities of sustaining wealth across generations, which is what I talk about all the time. You guys know I always talk about that generational wealth. And let's see. Forward-thinking advisor. She helps forward-thinking advisors to integrate social capital, values-based planning, and relationship-driven strategies into wealth management. Through her work, Paula helps families strengthen communication, foster trust, and engage the rising generations, ensuring that wealth isn't just preserved, but becomes a tool for greater connections and purpose. Drawing from research, including insights from the Good Life and hands-on experience with clients, she guides families in optimizing relationships in a core part of their long-term financial success. Are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Are you hearing what I'm saying? Thank you so much for joining us. And without further ado, please give it up for my incredible guest speaker, Miss Paula. Take it away, Paula.
Hi. Thanks, Leah, for the intro. Yeah, the more I work with families and how they're kind of doing their wealth planning, it's just so much. It's just so obvious how important the social capital is. So with Total Family, we're basing it to a fair amount with Jay Hughes' work on the 5 wealth capitals. So similar to yours, only he just has a hand and he kind of uses a model like this. But it's human capital, it's the intellectual capital, it's the cultural capital, the social, and then finally the financial one. So obviously the financial one, that's a base. It's typically easily measured. The others, have different types of measurement, but in his work, he really identified social capital is the one that gets the least amount of attention. Because it's kind of like, well, our relationships are fine until they're not. And helping clients, focus on, so what does a good relationship look like with my parents, with my children, with my extended family? And through my work with Total Family, we actually read The Good Life by Waldinger and Schultz. So that's an 80-year plus research project about relationships. And they followed the same people for like 80 years. And for some of those families, they also included their children and their grandchildren. And throughout all of that research, it was so clear how important relationships are to our mental health, physical health, certainly financial. And one of the key takeaways of Good Life is that relationships they're not just important, they're not just nice to have, they're actually protective. The people who had strong relationships in a variety of areas of their life lived longer, happier, healthier. And they looked at relationships across the board, certainly family relationships, but they also looked at relationships at work, in faith, in community. So it wasn't just, mom and dad, Jimmy and Johnny, but it was all of the relationships with your friends. And those people who really invested in those, paid attention to them, worked through the hard things, because 80 years, that included some lean years in our history in the US. So it's not all bells and whistles. But the more I read that, it's like, wow, we aren't paying enough attention to that social capital. And like you said, if you don't have the relationships, that financial wealth might be a little bit empty, because who are you going to spend that money with? Who are you going to go to Hawaii with? Who are you going to do those bucket lists with? If you're not going to do it with somebody that you near and dear.
Wow, wow, wow. And to your point, Paula, I always say begin with the end in mind. So when I sit down with a family or I'm helping a client, I always ask them, okay, what are we doing this for? What's the ultimate? How are you going to successfully exit this business? Or what does retirement look like? So that I can kind of see, and then we can reverse engineer from there. And oftentimes, which is really mind-boggling to me, I will meet an entrepreneur, business owner, or even a family, and they have amassed a fortune. However, they don't have children, or they don't have relationships with their children. And so when it comes to what is the legacy they want to leave, it's so, to me, it's kind of like they're not really even sure what to do with their money. It isn't anything that really inspires them. It's kind of like, well, I guess I can donate it here, or I guess I can donate it there, which is wonderful, but it doesn't have the heart behind it. Whereas, well, you know what? I want to leave money so that my grandchildren could go to college, or I want to leave my family home so that becomes a family home, or I want to create a foundation that has so much more guts behind it, so much more grit, that it really inspires them. Does that make sense, Paula?
Yeah, in the work that we do a lot of that, so what does this really mean? What do you want to do with all of your resources? And kind of what's the thing behind the thing? Why do you want to do a foundation? Why are you so passionate about that? Is it something that you experienced as a young person? You're like, you know what, I want to make sure nobody else experiences that. Or is it, I want to make this, a better world in the future. So I'm going to invest in something that will be forward looking, those types of things. But if you don't have relationships with the people who will be carrying on that tradition afterwards, it's going to peter out, because they won't understand the connection of like, oh, that's why grandma wanted to do that. That's right. And I want to honor her, and I'm going to pass that down to my children so that they know what great grandma was all about. But yeah, we're seeing sometimes that too, because I think our culture does a fair job at helping people understand, how do you manage money? What's a good investment strategy? Are you risk tolerant or not? Because there's numbers to that. But there's fewer numbers when it comes to some of those softer, but I would argue more essential things like relationships. Like I said, they're good until they're not. And then it's like, ooh, shoot, now, oh man, I'm estranged from my kids. How do I fix this? How do I bridge that gap? So we're going to, try to help people not have that gap. Or if there is a gap, let's talk about, okay, so how can you close that gap in a way that feels good for both sides?
Yeah, I have a real deep question for you. Okay, this might get real. I'm not sure where this is going to go, but I have several clients, and it just kind of happens. I mean, I've been in the industry now almost 20 years. So I have clients right now, probably 2 or 3 that are at the end of their life. They're struggling with some stage 4 cancer, things like that. And they do have estranged relationships with their children. And so I would ask you, is it something when people get more towards the end of their life that they're more incentivized to try to heal those? Or does that kind of how they've done it is the way that they always do it?
Personally, I think, yeah, when you're faced with a critical, life-changing thing, then you're kind of faced with making some of those big decisions. And so how do I want to exit? Those types of things. We're also seeing at other times of transition. So at time of retirement. So what is my relationship with my spouse? If we've been spending, 20 years raising kids, and now it's time for us to retire, we have an empty nest. It's like, okay, I know you as a mother or as a father. I kind of forgot who you are as a spouse. And they're finding ways to reconnect with that. And it takes, I think, some humility, some vulnerability, to find a way to say, hey, you know what? I didn't show up always as the way I wanted to. And I recognize that. And I want to make an effort to change it if you're open to it. So can we talk about what does it look like moving forward for us to be closer to relationships that we want to have, provided that, the other side wants that relationship. We can't force it. But at least having that willingness to say, hey, I'm going to open up the door. I don't know what it'll look like, but you know what? I'm humble enough to say, hey, this isn't how I want it at whatever stage of life you're in. But just say, you know what? I want to do better. Kind of that Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. And at least make the attempt.
Yeah, I want to highlight something you shared because it really resonated with me when you introduced yourself, is that relationships are good until they're not. And it's the same thing with our health. Everyone says that I'm in good health, I'm healthy, until one day they go to the doctor and suddenly they're not in good health. It doesn't happen generally over time, or we don't really pay attention to it, I think is what it is, until one day it kind of slaps us in the face. So let's say somebody has that situation and they're kind of struggling with bridging those gaps. Where should they start? And before we get to that, I want to welcome a few people who've joined us. I want to welcome Blessings. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see you here. Jeremy, it's been a little while since I've seen you. Thank you for joining us. It's great to see you, my friend. And then, of course, Mr. Mic Drop himself is in the house. my Hello LLC superstars, all of my stuff that you see, all my technical stuff is all because of them. So if you want to upgrade your technical game, your social media, please reach out to the Hello LLC. And then my good friend, Peter Muffler. Muffler, it's good to see you, Peter. Are you going to be at Sing Your Heart Out this Friday? It starts at 6 o'clock with Miss Noni Veroni, and 6 o'clock's a little early for me. I'm usually still working. And then, of course, Adrian, great to see you. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wealthy Wednesday. And my good friend, my Gita girl. Great to see you, Gita girl. Thank you for joining us. So what would you say, Paula, with somebody that those relationships have gone awry and that, you know, it just sort of happens and then suddenly it's there. And now they want to make that step to try to heal those relationships. What are some things that they could do?
Yeah, first we really work with, say, the individual and help them discover and get clarity around, so what is it that they want to be better? What does, I guess, success look like to have the relationship back? What are some of the things that they're looking for? What are some of the things that they're willing to do? You know, sometimes there's an apology. Sometimes there's forgiveness that needs to be involved, in just understanding in order for that relationship to heal, that there might be some work that they need to do to really identify. So what does success look like? And how can I reach out? And so that often looks like getting really, really clear on their values and seeing, it's like, ooh, shoot, I haven't lived up to my own value. Because they're nice when they're on paper. When you got to live it, when life is tough, it's like, oh, shoot, yeah, I did kind of slip. And for them really just to take a look inside before reaching out so that they are ready to do it. And they've built up their foundation to be able to do those things and move forward. Because if you go in unprepared, you're going to hit a point where you know, you're going to kind of struggle and you're like, oh, shoot, I don't know which way we're going now because the path has changed. Because you don't know how the other person might respond. They might welcome it. They might resist it, you know, and if they resist it, but it's not a closed door, it's just closed a little bit. You're like, okay, there's still room, but how do I keep that part open and maybe get it to open up a little bit more? That takes a little bit of different than thinking I can just walk right back into somebody's life like nothing happened. Is being able to acknowledge, you know, anything that they've done that might have contributed to it, and take accountability for that and be able to move forward. So those are some of the things that, you know, we'll take a look at, but it's really focused on what success do they want, not so much what did you do in the past and that type of stuff. It's like, okay, well, that happened. I can't change it. You can't change it. But what does it look like moving forward? What kind of relationship do you want when all is said and done? And working towards that and crafting a plan. So that's values. It's what role. I think that changes as people are parenting adult children. The roles shift a little bit because you don't need to diaper them and feed them. They need different care. But how do you respect that adult child and still have some parent-child relationship? But it's different. You're having different conversations. And sometimes, you know, we're not always prepared for that. How do you stay involved but not look like you're controlling? You know, how do you stay relevant? Especially as fast as the world is changing, how do you stay relevant with kids that are, you know, doing different things and experiencing different things? It's like, so how do you stay connected?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say if you're joining us and you have a business, you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, and you have something you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching this live, put live in the chat so I know that you're here with us watching us live. And also, I want to welcome my good friend, Michael. I apologize, Michael. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but thank you, Mr. Michael, for joining us. It's great to see you. He just moved recently, so he's probably having to reestablish some relationships there. It's difficult to move out of the area. Mm-hmm. Chris P., great to see you, Chris P. It's been a little while. It's great to see you. I know you're hanging out over there at the Go Brunch, which I still got to get that going. I'm just going to say, I'm glad that to see you over here with us on the LinkedIn side. And Coach Nick, great to see you. Change Agents, thank you. I appreciate that. Coach Nick is going to be a guest speaker on my show coming up here. And my good friend Meryl, thank you. Thank you for joining us. He's here from New Jersey, USA. It finally stopped raining. Well, that is amazing. It's always a beautiful day in Monterey here. It's always the same. Great to see you, my Gita girl. Christy Williams, thank you for joining us. And my intention with this show is to really highlight entrepreneurs, business owners, and allow you to have an opportunity to connect with each other, reach out to each other. Oh no, there's no Sing Your Heart Out on Friday. I didn't know that. Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. That's good. And Miss Lisa Fabeck, our menopause mentor, I would say her health and nutrition mentor. She's a dietitian. If you want to upgrade your good health, you're ready to get on that health journey, please reach out to her. She drops a ton of golden nuggets, lots of great wisdom. So let's say, because I'm thinking of a few relationships here that I am familiar with. The other side is not open, right? They're not open to hearing. Okay, I'm just going to tell you guys. It's somebody in my family, they've got a tiff going on here. Okay, and both of them, I love them both, but they both have the same complaints about each other. They never call me. They never care about what's going on with me. And the same on this side. They kind of are both saying the same thing. And neither one of them wants to take the first step. So is that something I should just kind of stay out of? Help guide me, Paul. It drives me nuts because they love them both. They're both wonderful, but they don't want to, they both complain about each other. They both say they want to have a better relationship with each other. They both say that they do really miss one another, but yet there's still that disconnect there.
Yeah, I think a lot of that will depend on whether, if they do want to truly reconnect and reestablish. If they're not active participants, it will just, there'll be a lot of activity, but there won't be much success. But I would ask for you, so, if you're interested in helping them with that, what would be your objective in that?
Well, I'll tell you my objective is both of these women are very much pillars in the family, and they both have a lot of influence in the family. And so it does create a lot of division when we're going to plan family outings, get-togethers and celebrations. It's always kind of like this tension. Now they both attend, but then there's this whole kind of thing, which is so confusing to me because they're both wonderful. Like I said, I love them both. I have a close relationship with both of them. And so for me, it's just confusing that they're mother-daughter. And I think about my relationship with my daughter. And so I just don't understand how this has kind of gotten to this place, because I do think that they do both love each other. Like I said, they're both wonderful people, but they've somehow have splintered. And so it just kind of seems to be getting worse. And I will say this, will you guys allow me to be transparent here?
Mm-hmm.
One of the family members has a terminal illness, and it's making me very like, gosh, I want this. So this is me talking me, right? I want to see this relationship heal before it's, maybe too late and we don't get the opportunities. And it is mother-daughter. I care about them both. Mm-hmm. And just watching, I really thought when the diagnosis happened, I really thought that it would bring the family together. But really, Paula, it's created more division. It's like people are kind of taking sides. And that I hadn't anticipated at all. So am I just being naive? Help me.
Well, that too, I don't know that our culture, at least in the U.S., helps us have conversations around serious illnesses like that. Because I hear that quite a bit. You get that diagnosis, and they don't know what to say, and they don't want to say the wrong thing. So they don't say anything at all. And that's not what people want either. They really just want somebody to be with them and say, hey, I'm on your side. I don't know what to say, but I'm here. Help me help you, without burdening the person who's ill. So that, I think, to some extent is almost cultural, is we don't necessarily help people have conversations around hard things like that. Getting a diagnosis and you have X amount of time left. It's like, okay, I don't even know how to process that. So that's one thing. That's probably not something that they're willingly doing. But, finding a way for you to say, okay, so where do you want to be with this? Can you get to a point where you understand that, hey, I can't control these two people. I can help facilitate if that's what they want. But if they don't, you can't just tell them to get into the same room and say, you can't come out until it's done. Because they're not children.
You two got to kiss and make up. That's what I want to say. Yeah. You two got to kiss and make up. Come on now, we can't do this. But yeah, and it is really me putting my wants into it, because I know that they're both have great intentions. I know that they're both have great contributions, and I'm seeing how it's creating the division within the family dynamics. And that just makes me so sad. It makes me really, really so sad, because I don't think it has to be that way. I think that if they could just kind of maybe get in a room and duke it out a little bit. I'm martial artist, so I always say, let's go.
Yeah.
Can't really do that. Can't really, but you know what I mean? Just hug it out. My oldest son always says, you guys could just hug it out, but it's just not. Yeah. So let's take a breath. Yeah. I want to welcome Jay. Thank you for joining us. I think you're a new friend here, Jay. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsor, your favorite sponsor, my favorite sponsor, and your favorite sponsor, which is me. Okay? We'll see you in a minute.
Are you ready to take control of your financial future? Introducing Leah Garcia's Wall of Wealth, the ultimate one-page financial plan to protect, distribute, and transfer your wealth with confidence. Whether you're a business owner or just starting your financial journey, this step-by-step guide gives you the tools to create a solid foundation for long-term success. Don't wait to transform your money mind shift. Download your free copy today at leahgarcia.io and start building your wall of wealth now.
So Paula, let's talk about now, how do we really cultivate those relationships? Let's say we have good relationships with our family. I feel like I have pretty good relationships with my grown children. It really is a little bit of a navigation. It's different when they're older, but I'm so grateful. We hang out together. We do things together. We go on vacations together, but I understand my boundaries. Like I can't be there, wanting to mother them. We always feel, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Always feel like we want to mother them and, defend them, take care of them, but they're grown up, and I totally understand that. So how can we cultivate, if we feel like we've got a pretty good foundation, what are some things that we could do to improve that?
It really does go down to, what is your intention? And if you can look, say, 5 years down the road, what do you want your relationship to look like? What do you want your role to look like? Are you a grandparent at that point, or are you a grandparent now? So what role do you want to play in your grandchildren's lives? That, like you said, with boundaries, that it's respectful, but it, continues to support. Because I had one family where, the grandparent was doing quite a bit of childcare, and at one point felt a little bit taken advantage of. And so she pulled it way back, because the younger generation wasn't expressing appreciation for that extra time and effort. So it's understanding, how does this family work together? Because I also know some grandparents that would be happily full-time taking care of the grandchildren when they're little. And that's perfectly works for that family. So it's having conversations around those things in a way that's familial, but also, I guess, a little bit more tactical. because it is kind of an arrangement, and you can kind of set some boundaries of, when, where, how, those types of things, so that you don't have misunderstandings. Having clear communication. This is my parenting style. I would like for you to, abide by that when you're with them, even though I was brought up differently, so that, the child isn't confused, or they probably always will be spoiled by the grandparents, but kind of understanding those types of things, but having some honest conversations, as well as, with the younger generation. How do they envision the relationship? What do they see as a way that the parents can continue to, support and guide and be involved and be up to date, but not feel like, they're always in your ear, and saying, well, that's not how I would do it. At what point, how will I know where you want my advice? Should I wait? If I see something, should I offer it? How does that work? Those types of things. Plus, I also think at that point, it's a great opportunity to have those longer term visions of when, say, if their kids are, toddler age. So daughter, son, what kind of parent do you want to be, or do you need to be, in order for those kids to still come to you with problems when they're 13, 14, 15? So how do you start to create and build and maintain that relationship? So as quickly as they came to you with a skinned knee, they're going to come to you with challenges in the most joyful years of education of junior high, or high school, so that they still feel comfortable, even if it might be awkward, that they still know, mom and dad are relevant. They're with it, if you're going to use 1960s language, and that you do that. And I think that changes, it's age appropriate as the children grow. And it's like, okay, if I want them to come to me when they're 16, 13, 16, 24, when they're having challenges, I need to start that now. So what kind of parent do I need to be today, next year, and the year after, to have it a little bit more planful than, and I know with, young parents, you're flying by the seat of your pants. So, it may not be something that you can do on a daily basis, but taking some time for themselves to reflect on, okay, the kid is getting to a new stage. How do I want to parent? And how can I prepare for the stage after that? So, infant getting to walking, okay, how am I going to protect them? How am I going to send them off to daycare, preschool, kindergarten? How am I going to do that? And thinking of it in smaller chunks, but with the goal of, if I want my kids to continue to talk to me when it's really critical, what kind of parent do I want to be? And what can I do today to get myself closer to them?
Yeah, that's good stuff. You kind of touched on grandparents, and I'm a proud gams. I have one precious grandson. And I would say for me, I'm pretty blessed from the perspective of, my daughter doesn't come to me for a lot of advice, but if I see something that I think maybe we can make some adjustments, I just model it for her, and she seems to kind of adjust. So, because, she's a mom, I go by her rules, whatever it is. And pretty much we're pretty congruent from majority of it. But let's say, I don't know, do we have a lot of grandparents in the house here? I know Rosie's not a grandparent. Christy, are you a grandparent? What would you say to somebody who is like, they're the caretaker of the child, the grandchild, and now they're feeling like they are being just kind of, taken advantage of, and their only time with them is when they're taking care of them? I don't know. That would be kind of hard. So what would you say to that? What are some things to think about in those cuts?
Yeah, and that's where you may need to, find a way to have a courageous conversation, because most likely the parent of the youngster may not realize the demands and things like that. And being able to find a way, and this again goes to the base of the relationship of trust and honesty and, being candid while still being compassionate, is when that's there, you can have a conversation, say, hey, can we talk about this arrangement? Because it's more than I thought it would be. I'm not sure I'm following your rules, and I want to be consistent for your child because it's your child. To be able to almost sit down and renegotiate it in a loving way, in a caring and a compassionate way, to keep the communication open and not shut somebody down, to find a way to be able to do that. If that relationship isn't there, then it probably takes even more courage, because you know it might be met with some resistance and maybe some feeling disappointed or rejected if you don't want to spend time with your grandchild anymore, and that's not it. It's how can we manage this so that it works for everyone and it's win-win-win. And right now it feels a little bit imbalanced. So in those conversations, actually, I think that's probably takes even more courage, because you might be able to anticipate the other person. Wait, what do you mean? Now I got to go find other childcare. How can you do this to me? Those types of things. But it's, taking the other's perspective of, if I were me coming to me with this, how would I want to be approached? And if it's your child, and maybe even with your in-law child, you might know them well enough to know how do they respond to challenging conversations. How do they respond to things that are conflict, even small things? Where do you want to go out for dinner? Italian, Mexican? Okay, now you got a conflict that you got to resolve. So do they dig their heels in? It's like, okay, well, I need to be aware of that. Maybe prepare for it. But I need to be mindful of that, because if they're going to dig their heels in, then we're really not able to have a quality conversation, because they're going to be in their amygdala and they're not really going to be able to hear. So I heard a colleague say that when you're making decisions from your amygdala, that's the smallest part of your brain. And if you want to make big decisions, you need to use this big honking thing up here. So how can you keep them in their executive brain rather than the fear-based? But seeing it's like, oh, wait a minute, they're digging their heels in. I need to back it up, because I need them to be in their executive brain. So we need to get back there so they don't see this as a rejection or as an attack or as a criticism. But it is an issue that we need to resolve. Otherwise, somebody's going to feel taken advantage of. And that's probably going to get that wedge wider and wider and wider.
Yeah.
And then the relationships are fine until they're not.
Wow. That is so good. That is really, really good. I'm making some connections here. So Coach Nick has a grandbaby, baby Luna. That's great. That's great. I love that, Coach Nick.
Nice.
So I could see where there would be a real challenge if the grandparent is a primary caretaker, like when watching the child when the parent's at work, let's say, and then having, I don't know. I think that would be a lot to navigate, because I'm blessed. I'm not his primary caregiver. It'd be wonderful if I was, but I'm obviously still working. So my daughter's just blessed to be a stay-at-home mom, so we don't need that type of care. So I'm fortunate that when I see him, it's our time, right? It's not like the clock that I'm punching in and out, and I've got to get all these laundry lists of things, the regular things, get the laundry and the dishes and all those things. So I could see how that could be really, really challenging. Let's see what Coach Nick has to say. They want me to kind of just sit on the porch and be quiet. The rule book changes as they have parented more. Yes, and less, coupled less, and slept less after 8 grueling months for them. We let them bring it to us and keep our mouth shut. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Coach Nick. I think that's really what I've done is I'm there, I'm supportive. And my daughter's pretty much a really good mom, but there's always those things where like, oh, but you know what?
How do I do this? There's not a rule book for it.
There is a rule book for it. I just love them both. I love my daughter. I know her intentions are good. My precious grandson is my everything. And so I'm fortunate that when I see him, I'm not the prime. I could see that could be really difficult. How could somebody, if they are the primary caregiver, how do they navigate that? Because maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking is there caretaker time and then grandparent time? Or is it when you're caring for them, is that just grandparent time? I don't know. Might be kind of hard to do that.
Well, part of the work that we do with families, though, is helping them understand how you can do basically two things at once. Is, you know, with time with your children, yes, it might be homework time, but is that also a time to really connect with your child and understand what they're passionate about? You know, are they really passionate about those math problems? And you see, ooh, they're going to be a good engineer. They're going to be a rocket scientist. You know, so seeing it not so much as just this is what I'm doing right now. It's like, okay, but because we're not just static people. We're a whole person. We always bring our whole person wherever we go. Sometimes that's baggage. Sometimes it's light and energy. But you can't, you know, when I worked in corporate, people would say, well, leave your emotions at the door. And I'm like, well, that's really unrealistic because we take it everywhere we go. You have a choice in how you express those emotions in the workplace. And when maybe you need to take time off to deal with things, but it's unrealistic to say you can just leave that emotional baggage at the door because it's like connected to you. It's like that middle-aged, you know, tire around your belly. You can't just set it aside. But to kind of take a look at it. So maybe some of that caretaking time is, wow, this is really time that I'm able to connect with my grandbaby and I'll never get this time back. I'm going to have some really great memories when, you know, he or she was an infant or when they were 2 or when they're 5, whenever that is to take a look at it. It's not, yes, it is caretaking, but it's also relationship building so that they have a bond with the grandbaby, as well as a relationship with the parent to give them some relief, be able to support them, to say, hey, you know what, just because you're an adult doesn't mean I don't support you anymore. I'm here and I'm going to help. But also having those boundaries of like, okay, but I'm also not a 24/7 person, unless that's the agreement. Okay. You know, how does that work? You know, those types of things. So it's really individual to that family of what presence, what participation, what contribution, and having those adult conversations to say, you know, this is how I see it. Let's talk about how does that work? Does that work for you? Those types of things.
Yeah, that's so good. And I love when you said, what is the relationship you want 5 years from now? And so I think that sometimes we can get really caught in the weeds and just think, listen, is this the hill I want to die on? You know, she's letting him stay up and I would have put him to bed at this time. You know, he's going to be okay. Right. That's not something that we need to get into a battle over or vice versa. So that's great wisdom there. You know, our grandchildren, I just think that they are absolutely our gift for not killing our children when they were growing up, right? God said, thank you so much. Here's your reward. Here's your present. You get this precious little one here. So what are some common mistakes that you see with relationships as a whole? What are some things that kind of, like you said, relationships are good until they're not? Are there some kind of things that maybe we should shy away from or just to be aware of to preserve our relationships?
In some of the families that I've worked with, sometimes we're in like a repairing mode. And I think having just the awareness of, well, wait a minute, this feels a little wonky. Let me kind of see whether this is a pattern that I need to address, or did somebody just have a bad day? You know, because not every, I guess, bump in the road needs to have, you know, a sit down, talk about it. But to think about, okay, that conversation felt a little bit off. Yeah. Okay. Let's see the next day, is it back to normal? Like, oh, okay, it was a full moon Friday the 13th, you know? But if there's a pattern, to be able to say, something's off here. It may just be me, but I'm feeling like we're not really connecting. Can we just chat about it? Are you having extra stress at work? Or is there something that I did that, is rubbing you the wrong way? Let's talk about it before it gets big and divisive, to do that. But we are so busy, and it is pretty easy to just blow something off, because we also don't help people have hard conversations with greater ease. I like to say we teach them Jerry Springer. That's how we resolve conflicts. It's shouting match, it's out in public, it's name calling. So we, culturally is, in the US, from what I see, is we don't do a very good job of helping people have those hard conversations and do it well, not feel like they've been walked on, and not feel like they're walking over somebody else. So that takes active listening. That takes being really clear on what you want to say and choosing your words.
Yeah.
It takes emotional self-awareness, but it's also choosing which emotions you want to express. What expression would be most helpful? I think all emotions serve a purpose, even the ones that are uncomfortable. They are a signal that something isn't right. And in one model I use, it's if your needs are not met, it's that uncomfortable half of the circle. The other half of the circle is when your needs are met, and it's happy, it's joy, it's satisfaction, that kind of stuff. So those uncomfortable emotions are telling you that there's a need not met. So you have a choice then. What need is it? And how do I get it back to an area of satisfaction? So, when I work with leaders a lot, it's like, oh, I was so angry. I'm like, but I know anger isn't the one. That's not going to help. It's just going to get somebody into their small part of their brain. So we really dialed in it. And a lot of times it's frustration or it's disappointment. And expressing disappointment is a lot different than expressing anger. If I come up to say, I'm really disappointed that we missed that deadline, versus I'm angry we didn't miss that we missed that deadline, that other person's response is going to be much different. Anger is going to trigger that fear. Disappointment is like, oh man, I let my boss down. Shoot, I want to do better. And sometimes that says, okay, that emotion is not going to be useful to express right now. It's valid, but it's not going to move the conversation forward. But I do need to find a way to say that things aren't as they should. So is that disappointment? Is it frustration? Is it I feel let down? What is it that will help engage the conversation of like, okay, where do we go from here? We missed this deadline. I'm disappointed. We've lost some trust. We need to rebuild that trust, but how do we move forward in a way that that other person is not becoming defensive, but moving forward with it? Is having those types of conversations. That again, we don't necessarily teach people that. We teach you to shut it down. Don't be mad that you tell a small child that, their toy fell down. Don't be mad. Now they know what that feeling is. It's mad, and I shouldn't feel that. And that's maybe conflicting for that child. It's like, oh, but they told me not to feel that way, but I feel it. What am I supposed to do with that? And so they internalize it. And I found that when you don't express the emotions that you need to, they come up in another totally unrelated way, and it doesn't make sense to anybody. It's like, what? That is not appropriately sized to this thing. What else is going on here? And then you find this, just this ball of that is at the center of it. It's like, oh, okay.
I love that technical term, that ball of Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a great comment here by Jay. He says, I think having the talk would be more beneficial both for kids and parents, because there will be times when there have been challenges that have lasted for years. Absolutely, Jay. And I could say in my own family, this has been something that has been building up for many decades. And now it's kind of coming to a crescendo here, which is in not a good way. So boy, we've learned a lot about preserving relationships, cultivating relationships, having those conversations. And relationships are complex, they're fragile, they're ever evolving. And we never know how we're being interpreted. And we never know what we're interpreting is what was intended. So something I will just share that I do is like, gosh, you know what? That really hurt my feelings. Was that your intention to hurt my feelings? Oh no, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. I was just really busy that day. Or, I'm sorry, I was thinking about the kids and, it just kind of spilled over. But just kind of taking it, and instead of assuming, hey, they're hurting my feelings, they must not like me. They probably wanted to hurt me. They've been trying to hurt me this whole time and creating this whole mountain.
Yeah. We're very good at telling stories to ourselves, and they're never the Hallmark stories. And that's actually a self-preservation, because if we're in the fear state, we're going to be mindful and watchful for things that might threaten us. It's the whole saber-tooth stuff. But an attack to our ego is just as dangerous in these days as that saber-toothed tiger was. So that voice of they don't like me, they're mad at me, it's protecting you because now you're going to be alert to things. But it's not necessarily helpful. Is to, have the conversation. Hey, you know what? I was really disappointed. I was really hurt yesterday. I think that's not what you intended, but I mean, that was the result. And, can we talk about that? If you can't make a commitment in the future, can we talk about how that might be communicated? Because honestly, I lost sleep over this, and I know I shouldn't, but I was really disappointed.
Yeah, I love that, Paula. Just describing how it made you feel so they understand the impact it had. If that was the impact they were striving for, then they might say, yeah, I wanted you to be tormented all night. Well, then you go. There you go. I love this comment, Jay.
Yeah, and then you got to tell the story for that.
Yeah, they can be seen as positive or negative, whether it be personal or business. And, I try not to use that word negative. How I think about it this way. It's either serving me or it's not serving me. If it's serving me, great. If it's not serving me, if I feel bad when I'm in this person's presence, if they putting me down, making me feel some kind of way, then probably that's not a relationship that I need to cultivate. I really need to rethink that. But I love the comments. Thank you so much. So we're kind of winding down here, Ms. Paula. You made a lot of friends here. You've accomplished a lot of things. I love the work that you're doing. What can we expect to see from you in the next 12, 18 months? What do you have coming up for us?
Oh, wow. There's a lot happening in Total Family. They're rolling out a new website. Alex Kirby, who's Total Family, he's got his podcast going. I mean, they're going full force. And really the approach is to work with advisors and help the advisors have better relationships with their clients, and their clients have better relationships with their wealth, the 5 capitals of wealth. So he's been working quite a lot at, helping the advisors be able to bridge the generational gap of, when finances, transfer from one generation to another. And it does come down to communication, relationships with their clients and their clients' children, but also with their clients in how do I make sure the next generation understands my intent? How do we have valuable conversations, not just about the finances,
right,
but about culture, what do we value and those types of things. So you're going to see a lot from Total Family, even within the next 3 months. It's staged to be really impactful.
That's awesome. You've made a lot of new friends here. I know people are going to want to connect with you. How do we reach you? How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So I believe my profile was linked with your post. So that's probably the easiest to spell it out. I've got one of those long names. That's a little bit harder to do. But that's really where I post a lot. But also follow Total Family because they're posting quite a bit of the research that they're finding, news pieces. He's posted about one of his most recent podcasts is with Jay Hughes, where he talks about the 5 capitals of wealth. Which is really just fascinating. He's a brilliant man, and it's a great conversation to listen to. So connect with Total Family, and get on their podcast list because he's doing some amazing conversations.
I love that. We're saying the same thing, just in a little bit different terminology, right? We're really talking about relationships, core values, traditions, keeping the family together, because otherwise, what do we have? To me, it's about the family. It's all about the family. So this has been a lot of fun today, Paul. I appreciate you. And we're going to kind of sign off here. We're going to hear from my AI. I have a great little video here, but then don't go away because I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my takeaways, my golden nuggets. So see you here in just a moment.
Hey there, I'm Leah Garcia. Have you ever wanted a career where you truly make a difference in people's lives? I'm building a team of driven financial and insurance professionals, people who want to help families and businesses protect, distribute, and transfer their wealth with confidence. If you're passionate about guiding others to achieve financial security, then you're exactly who I'm looking for. Join my supportive, growth-oriented environment and unlock your full potential. Ready to take the next step? Visit leahgarcia.io and let's start building your future together.
This has been a really impactful conversation, Paula. You brought a lot of value, a lot of wisdom here. And I love the work that you're doing. And again, I feel like we're really saying the same thing in different ways. I believe that true wealth is having, it's having success in all of those areas, the 7 F's. And truly, when I'm sitting down with the family and working on their family legacy, I always ask them, where are we going? What is that vision? What's the end result? What are you looking for? And it oftentimes leads to the legacy they want to leave, which is, leaving the family home or building that nonprofit or donating to something that's near and dear to their heart, and then communicating those wishes, their experience, their rationale behind why that's so important. Why are they donating to this dance club? Why do they want to build this nonprofit? Because of the way that they were born and raised, the way that things happened to them that they didn't have access to. And a couple of my key takeaways here was really asking the people that, even if you're having a great relationship, I think this is a great question. What kind of relationship do we want to have in 5 years? Even if things are going well, how can we make them even better? How can we open up the dialogue even more? How can we really enrich each other's lives even more? And then asking people, what kind of parent do they want to be, or what kind of daughter do you want to be? What type of spouse do you want to be? And know how we're showing up for them. So this is really transformational, Paula. You're helping a lot of people. You can bring so much healing, and I think we need it. We need it more now more than ever, it seems. So I appreciate you. I had a lot of fun. Great golden nuggets, a lot of great wisdom here. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for all of the comments. And, please connect with Paula. I know she'd appreciate that. And you can extend this conversation. And here we go right here. Coach Nick said, thank you, Paula, for sharing your time and wisdom. Absolutely. Much appreciated. That's going to do it for us for this episode of Wealthy Wednesday. Next week is going to be fire. We're here every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And if you know or someone would like to be a guest speaker on my show, I'd love to talk to you. I'm always looking for dynamic speakers who can bring some wisdom to our wealth. So thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of Wednesday. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.